Sometimes Kaneko and Lumi just did things. A general statement, to be sure, but it was an accurate one. Not only did she do them, she did them without regard for anyone else's sensibilities, including, but not limited to, friends, family, coworkers, strangers on the street, law enforcement, federal entities, and, most importantly, Pipkin Pippa. The pink rabbit had been on the receiving end of the star's tendency to just do things, multiple times. She'd been roped into a few instances of petty retail theft masterminded by her totally not a criminal friend, most of which she'd been entirely unaware were happening until she'd been hustled into the getaway vehicle. She'd been on both the receiving end and plotting end of a few harmless pranks against their fellow Phase Connect talents, whether that be stealing Arena Machina's charging cable for her cyborg bits, raiding Komachi Panko's panty drawer, which revealed only pristine white underwear, stealing Fujikura Uraka's violet, and placing it in various obscure locations, or taking her own slippers so she had to stream barefoot, something which she was very self-conscious about after the subscriber goal incident a few months back. Come to think of it, most of the things Lumi just did revolved around theft. Especially that one. See, recently, the blonde had added a new sort of theft to her repertoire. Theft of dignity. While it would have been easy peasy to just pull down someone's pants and leave it at that, Tema Miami knew how that felt. Or steal their clothes while showering. Being one of the more hygienic phase talents, Leah had felt the pain from that one more than a few times. Lumi's dignity kleptomania went a step further, subjecting her friends to a form of humiliation they'd all assumed that they'd just grown out of. Wedgies. Yes, now, in addition to whatever other stresses were on their minds, the phase girls had to worry about getting their underwear hiked up their butt cracks, pulled over their heads, hooked to their bras, used to dangle them from all manner of outposts, looped over their shoulders, you name it. Lumi was certainly no slouch when it came to study of the bullying encyclopedia, and the others were feeling the burn. Not even going commando could save them. Utatane Nasa and her pair of ripped, now oversized compression shorts were proof positive of that. Pippa herself had only been on the receiving end of Lumi's panty pulling once, although it wasn't as though that meant she'd been let off lightly. In fact, being the first one, she hadn't even seen it coming. During a live stream, the star had ripped the rabbit's old, nasty underwear right off her body. Thankfully, no one had seen anything lewd, aside from Lumi, but that wasn't really a concern for her. But the incident had led to days on end of mockery from her stream chat, the members of the Phase Connect Discord server, and a few of those forums which shall not be named. So with that lasting impression and humiliation firmly imprinted in her mind, it was needless to say that Pipkin Pippa was a bit worried when her friend Lumi just did another thing and invited herself to spend the evening at the rabbit's home. Now, if she'd been in her right mind, she would have immediately put her foot down and sent Lumi on her way once she'd had finally noticed the lemon-stealing woman sitting at her kitchen table. She picked the lock. Again. But the blonde had brought Taco Bell and a few extra cups of Baja Blast, and Pippa sort of just folded. Who could blame her? The crunch wraps were just too irresistible. But an uninvited guest in her house gave her a bit of a problem to deal with. She hadn't prepared at all for company. It wasn't like she was going to clean or anything. Ever since she somehow lost her Roomba, that was a lost cause. And cooking was out of the question too, since she was pretty sure her milk was expired and she let her trial of HelloFresh run out weeks ago. But there was one thing she always did when there was someone coming over that she hadn't done yet, and that was the smell test. See, Pippa didn't bathe very often. It was a bad habit, and she knew she should really force herself to just get into the shower every other day. But life always just seemed to get in the way. She had streams to do, YouTube shorts to edit, online metadata to keep track of, friends to keep up with, MMOs to play, and, if her boss had his way, nightly mahjong soul sessions to get roped into. Her life was stressful. It was a miracle she even ate enough meals to survive. But she knew she had to bathe occasionally, and people coming over to her house gave her a perfect reason to do so. If she needed to, that was. It was really only worth taking 10 minutes out of her day to shower when she had company if she really, really needed it. And so she developed the smell test. The procedure was pretty simple. She would reach down the front of her shorts, swab around a little, and then smell them. If it was edging on a little too rancid, she'd make an effort to shower. Was it gross? Yeah. Was it ridiculously unhygienic? Of course. But did it prevent people from commenting on whatever odor she might have accumulated over the days since her last cleansing? Oh, yeah, most of the time. Of course, she had to actually do it, and she hadn't gotten the chance since Lumi came over. So, when the star claimed she had to use the little gaseous balls of fire's room, Pippa took her chance. She didn't bother getting out of her ripped-up desk chair, and instead simply turned its back to the bathroom door, so if Lumi came out before she was done, she wouldn't see anything nasty. With the hand she was sure was the cleanest, it wouldn't help her judgment if she already had some kind of smell on her testing hand. She reached down the front of her bloomer-like shorts, reaching into her crevices, and swabbing her fingers around thoroughly, ending up squeezing her thighs together in the process for obvious reasons. Once she was satisfied she had gotten a good enough sample, and shoving aside her other purchase, she gingerly retracted her hand and raised it natively to her nose, took a big whiff, and asked herself the pivotal question: do it stink? The wave of nausea that swept up from her stomach answered the question very thoroughly. It do. That settled it. It was shower time. Pippa would take the opportunity that Lumi's bathroom break offered her and just head down to her own bathroom to wash up before the star even had a chance to tease her for her filthiness. As she hefted herself to her feet, she could already imagine what Lumi would say.
Oh my god! You really do that?
Yeah, something like that. Hang on. Those words had come from her ears, not her head. Pippa's muscles tightened as she felt Lumi's arms wrap around her and slither down the front of her shorts, pinning her in a forced hug. But instead of going deeper like Pippa had, Lumi settled with snagging the front waistband of Pippa's other pair of ratty black panties. The position they were in didn't allow her to see the blonde's face, but she knew from Lumi's taunting, amused tone that she had her usual shit-eating grin.
Rumi,
She warned, her body running icy cold.
don't.
Lumi giggled evilly,
If you want to smell yourself, then why don't I help you?
and she hiked the front of Pippa's waistband up to her collarbone in one clean pull. Spots exploded in Rabbit's eyes, and her jaw went slack with shock as she felt her underwear cleave deep into the womanhood she'd just been feeling around in. The front wedgie giving her the mother of all camel toes in a matter of milliseconds, not to mention the friction burns in her ass crack, which hadn't been spared, and the rest of her underside that the swift yank caused. Her legs gone from concrete to jelly, and she sank into the wedgie, a defense mechanism that might have gotten her out of it had she been in any other position, but as it was, Lumi's back hug forced her to remain upright and take the pulverizing from her poor pip panties with no reprieve. Pippa moaned, her eyes crossing from the sheer explosive pain of the wedgie.
Rumi?
She groaned, her hands feebly gripping the front of her panties' gusset, which was now stretched up to her rib cage. This was so much worse than the first wedgie she'd gotten from the star.
Please. Oh? You want me to finish up?
Lumi snickered, enjoying the rabbit's suffering. That had to be her favorite part about front wedgies. No matter how used to getting the back of their underwear hiked up people were, pulls from the front bypassed their tolerance more effectively than she could ever imagine. It was usually the balls part for boys, of course, but for girls like Pippa, she knew for a fact it was because she was able to floss her undercarriage deeper than any back wedgie ever could.
Oh, I hope you're ready. No!
Pippa wheezed. Her vision, which was just starting to clear up, went blurry again as Lumi jerked her panties higher. She could now see them without even looking down, a black shroud in her field of vision like the visage of death.
Mommy, no. Fuck. Ow. Whoops. Looks like it went a little deaf.
Lumi chirped, smirking her famous lopsided smirk.
Send my regards to Smellsville.
Pippa's eyes went wide, her pink irises shrinking down to pinpricks as she realized what Lumi was about to do. As the shroud of black descended on her face, she wailed.
No! No! Front atomic wedgie!
Lumi crowed as she gave Pippa the stinky, nasty panty crown she'd been trying to give her the last time. She laughed and backed up to examine her handiwork, watching Pippa hunch over forward to try to release the tension of the panties, only to retch and straighten back up as far as she was able when the posture brought her nose even closer to the source of the odor, which of course only made the wedgie even worse.
God, you need a shower. You're so stinky and gross. You know?
Pippa replied, her voice about an octave higher than usual, if that was even possible, and about as tight as the panties in her womanhood.
I'm fucking considering it. Then get going, dweeb.
Lumi told her, gently pointing Pippa toward the direction of her bathroom and smacking her ass, which got the rabbit lipping forward at a pretty quick clip, all things considered, and made the star look at her hand with a grimace. She would need to wash that.
And don't forget to throw those underwear out. They're nasty. Fuck you.
Came the rabbit's muffled shout. Lumi smirked and put her hands on her hips, or at least one hand. Then when she used to spank Pippa, she just hovered at her side. Another job well done. Now, what else of Pippa's could she temporarily repossess?